Always such good company, it's the only place to be. Over at Grampy's house. Da-dee-da-da-dee, it never is too late. Da-dee-da-da-dee, he will always wait. And when everybody's resting, he's always full of pep. Everybody's gonna be over at Grampy's house.
Thank you. Dear Betty, I'm giving a little party. Come right over, bring the gang. Grampy! Such a darling. I'm on my way to Grampy. Oh, he's such good company. It's the only place to be. Over at Grampy's house. Oh, I'm on my way to Grampy's. For he always treats me nice. Always something on the ice.
Where?
Over at Grampy's house. Da-da-dee-da-da-da-dee. It never makes me wait. Da-da-dee-da-da-da-dee.
Everybody's gonna be
Over at Grampy's house, so we're on our way to Grampy's.
Oh, such good company. Over at Grampy's house,
So we're on our way to
Grampy, for he always treats us nice. Always something on the ice. Where?
Over at Grampy's house. Da-da-dee-da-da-dee.
It never is too late. Da-da-dee-da-da-dee, he will always wait. And everybody's resting, he's always full of pep. Everybody's gonna be right here at Grampy's house. That must be Betty and the gang.
Okay, boys, come on in. Hello, Grampy dear. I brought you some company.
How do you do?
Howdy.
Hi, Grampy.
Hello.
How do you do, Gravy? Hey!
Come on, folks, have some punch.
What an idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Down the hatch.
Oh,
Serve the cake, Betty.
I sure will.
Thanks.
Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Is that good? Say, Grampy, how about some music?
Music? No. Let me think. No, music. Music. Uh-huh. Oh, music. Oh, dear. Oh, I've got it.
What up, Cyberspace Cadet, Cyber Fam, Fanbox Glory? That's right. Little peek behind the scenes as Irate Prostate gives everybody a signal that we're fitting to start. And it's Saturday. You know what that time means? It's time for XD, also known as Accelerated Deconstruction, featuring the one and only XL because it's his show.
Oh, we already officially changed XD to mean big dick.
Oh, well, you could be laughing at your small dick. I don't know. XD. I like it. Anyway, I'll shut up. Atena?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey guys.
It's your birthday month now, so.
Sort of. Yeah.
You
I'll be
didn't-
celebrating my birthday tomorrow.
If you didn't wish Tim a happy birthday yesterday, you can wish him one right now.
Oh, well,
Out of the
thank you,
chat.
Bob.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday,
Timma.
Timma.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm
we have
very.
to sing happy birthday.
No, please don't.
Okay, good. I didn't want to anyway.
It's the
Thank you.
I'll send you a link to the Vandals' birthday song. That's
Okay.
the best song that anybody could play for their birthday.
because if you play the
is.
Beatles' birthday, you definitely get struck for it.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's Paul McCartney
Really?
and Paul and Yoko don't have enough money. You know?
Oh, apparently.
So you won't get struck for playing the Vandals version on stream, but you might get a monetization claim. So the 25 cents you're gonna make off of people watching the stream would go directly into the pockets of not the people in the Vandals, of course not. It's whatever record
Oh, the
company
record
owns the
label,
rights
yeah.
to that song. Yep,
And they'll shoot them a couple pennies out of that.
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on who still owns the rights. Because a couple of those old school independent companies, dude, they only took like 2-3%. I mean, that's why they're all gone. So it may be that the Vandals actually get quite a good portion. I don't know. The Vandals are pretty right-leaning. They were pretty economical with their choices as a band.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think they took the same deal that most bands in that era did. I got a chance to run around with a band called the River City Rebels when they were on tour. They actually, the guitar player for the band I was playing in at the time, he was working as part of like a production crew. So anytime a band would come into town, he would, be one of the people that like set up the stage, things like that.
Yeah.
So he ended up getting like kind of a direct line into bands looking for shows. And the River City Rebels were one of them, which it's not a super popular band, but they were on Epitaph, which is the same record label. I mean, it was ran by Rancid, which was probably the most famous punk band of the 90s and 2000s. But I was driving around with the guy, and honestly, he's the reason why like I basically quit playing, because I was not having fun playing music anymore. It'd been like 4 years, and the band didn't do anything it said it was going to do. But I was talking about how, I'm not going to lie, dude, I pirated almost all of your music. And he's like, don't worry, we haven't seen a dime from any sale that you, like any CD sale outside of a show. And I was like, I thought you got a percentage. And he's like, yeah, after recuperable cost. Like literally record labels are just like a bank. Right? They fund you the money to set up your tour. You get some rights to make money on the tour through your merch sales and things like that, like portion of the ticket sales. But basically everything they sell, you get a portion after the recuperable cost, which includes the money they paid for your tour, any advertisements they did, the production cost, and they bullshit about how much it actually all costs too, to make sure that unless you are like a huge star, that there's no way you're ever going to meet that threshold, and all the money's going to keep going to the record label.
well, why do you think there's so many these independent artists that are getting big and they're starting their own record labels?
Well, yeah, that's what happened. So the internet made it so anybody can be an artist.
Yeah, I know we're getting fantastic music again. It's wonderful.
Well, there's so much good music out there, and it turns out that you don't get rich off of making good music.
Oh, you do.
You
do it right.
You can. It's rare.
You know, it's funny you should mention all this there, Excel, because I don't know, all of this past really 2 weeks I've been listening to like these bands off of Bandcamp There's this like killer French, just it's like just pure metal music with no vocal. And I mean, they've got like hours and hours and hours of shit, man. I mean, just real productive and really good stuff, and like really creative uses of old grooves and shit, kind of repurposed, you know. Very, yeah, it's good music. King Weed, that's right, King Weed. Get their shit, man. It's good. And all of it's pretty much is on YouTube. So all you got to do is pop it in, and you can pull. I think my favorite album is The Conquerors of the Light. I think it's a great title.
Well, I have a
My
hard
daughter's on
time
Big Jam.
believing. I have a hard time believing anything good came out of France. I'll take your word
No,
for
I
it.
swear to God, dude, it's ridiculous, right? But you know what? They're creating their art, their horror movies, and their fucking and this metal shit is the best stuff that they put out, man. It's you know, it's a give and take situation.
My daughter creates video game music and uploads it to Bandcamp. So
Like 8-bit
I've heard of
stuff?
it.
Yeah.
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 She's only 14, so it's not particularly. It's really good stuff. It's great for like high-speed action games and stuff.
Nice. Sweet. Well, Excel,
Yeah,
this is
she's
your
good too.
boat. Take the wheel and steer us
Man,
to
you get a
prosperity.
captain that's just kind of out of it today.
You want to say it in the chat? We'll say it in the chat.
Yeah, we should say hi to the chat. What's up, man, Squatch? What's up, Hey Camel? Object to Hate, you hit me up earlier. I'm about to tell the chat the same thing I told you. We got the useless rebel. I'm sure you're not useless. Cronin, man, Squatch again. I see Yoshi, Uzuku, of course,
Hey,
Becca
Yoshi.
Fairley, always a joy. LDG Geeks Joy, and I think that's everybody, at least everybody that's talked so far.
Yeah, so far, exactly.
And I want to say hi and thank you to everybody, but it really hurts if I type, so I'm not going to be typing in the chat today. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
So Object hit me up and he asked if we were going to cover anything about the teachers unions. That's been a big deal because of all this anti-CRT legislation that's being passed in red states, which I must say, and we'll get to it later, but everybody that's saying that the legislation is anti-CRT, it is only to the extent that you can't postulate every premise as true to your students and force them to adhere to it. Other than that, it says nothing about talking about CRT as a thing that exists and explaining what it is to the students. But that's what they're upset about because it's an activist ideology.
Well, and all the bands have already clarified that it's all very specific to separating people by their race, their ethnicity,
or making people feel guilty. Like everything that's in the legislation, funny enough, is if any sane person read it, they'd be like, I thought that was already illegal. Why do you have to pass this? Right? But they go out and lie and they're just like, it's trying to prevent teachers from teaching history. Like, and they have to lie.
It's like saying Wuthering Heights is history, though. That's not history.
Yeah, it's not. But that's how these people operate. We've known this. Like, they have to lie because if they tell the truth, it turns off most people. And they don't actually care about honesty. I mean, they don't even believe in objective truth. It's nowhere in CRT do they talk about how honesty is like a principle that they need to adhere to. It's a ideology that is solely based on outcomes. So the means always justify the ends.
Right.
But to that point, Irate was wanting us to go over a lecture by Ibram Kendi. I personally did not want to sit through Ibram Kendi just talking because he's actually not that interesting, even for a CRT person. Part of it, the reason why, is my experience with Kendi is he doesn't beat around the bush like most critical race theorists. In fact, he doesn't lie. He straight up tells you, anytime you see disparate outcomes, racism exists. And yeah, I have no problem with government policy that discriminates against one group as long as it meets an anti-racist goal, which means trying to change the outcomes. He's completely honest and open about it, which is why I think we went over the video about with that one teacher that ended up in a struggle session with those two self-professed CRT scholars.
Oh, the gaslighting women.
Yeah, the gaslighting women, trying to tell him Ibram Kendi is not a critical race theorist.
Yeah, and so is Robin DiAngelo.
Yeah, I think that's why they disown him, because he says the quiet part out loud. But anyway, so we have a video of Senator Josh Hawley from my great state of Missouri. I like some of the stuff he does. I think a lot of the other things he says is overreach, but I mean, I'll take what I can get. Better than the person he replaced, which was Claire McCaskill. But he goes off and he does this speech about CRT and how terrible it is. And then Ibram Kendi goes on the Joy Reid show, so you know it's going to be just a blast to watch, responding to Josh Hawley. So we're gonna listen to the Hawley video first, and then we're gonna follow it up with Ibram Kendi's response.
Ready?
Okay.
An object to hate, yes. We might have failed at shielding this show, and we took last week off because it was the 4th, weekend the 4th. And a lot of the times when we do that, people forget to come the next week. So please, anybody in the chat, like, share, and subscribe, as every YouTuber says. Shield us out. Let's get more people in here.
Thank you. Now, wait, so we're going to watch Josh Hawley now?
Yep.
I'm here today to talk about those things that unite us as Americans, and I'm here to talk about those things that divide us. For centuries, public service has been something that unites Americans, drawing us together. Citizens from all walks of life serve in our military. They serve in federal and state and local governments. They serve in police units and fire departments across our country. They serve as teachers and coaches, and we as a nation are better off for their service and for their sacrifice. Those who serve our nation do it not because they have to, but because they want to. They do it because they believe this nation is worth serving. They do it because they believe this nation is worth defending. They believe it is worth celebrating. And they are right to think all of those things. Service to this country is an act of selflessness that affirms our nation is a place worth believing in. But I'm concerned that the President administration and this President Joe Biden, do not share this point of view. I'm worried that President Biden is nominating for federal office individuals who do not share a view of America as a good and decent place, who do not believe that the history of this nation is worth celebrating, nominating instead people who believe that this is a country founded in racism and shot through with corruption. Many of these nominees are partisans of a viewpoint that goes by different names, but shares several features in common. A view that America is a systemically racist place and systemically unjust. A view of America as corrupt. A view of American society as one that needs to be deconstructed, that needs to be pulled apart, torn down, and then rebuilt in a fundamentally different way. Now, this broad ideology has become known in public as critical race theory, or sometimes just critical theory. And let me tell you, as someone who has taught in our nation's universities, someone who has seen our institutions of higher learning up close, I would say to those in the media and elsewhere who now deny that there is any such thing as critical theory, that critical theory is in fact very real. It is very influential, and it appears to have become the animating ideology of this administration. And that is cause for great concern. Critical theory is an ideology that says the United States is rotten to its core The leaders of this movement think our society is defined by white supremacy. They think our leaders are complicit at best. They think that all Americans are either oppressors or oppressed. In our world-class military, these critics see a vehicle for discrimination. In our American flag.
I haven't actually watched this yet, but so far, like, I'm gonna give him an A. Like, everything he's saying about critical race theory, like, I figured he would. The only thing, actually, I'm gonna give him an A minus. He claimed that they think America is rotten to its core, which that'll give him some wiggle room. But everything else is pretty accurate description of what the critical theorist believes.
The critical theorists really do dislike America.
I get it, but that's one of those things where we've talked about it before. Call it what it is, right? They hate America, but at the same time, they try to weasel their way around it and saying like, no, we're just trying to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't have to weasel. You don't have to let them weasel around it. You can just say, you can admit if you think it needs to be better, you dislike it and you hate it. So
yeah,
it's still an A in my opinion, because they really do hate America. They hate the fact that we're free to just be kind to each other,
right,
and not care about shit.
Right.
Yeah, we'll let him go on. I expected him to do a lot of swings and misses or the easy mischaracterizations, right? The lazy ones.
Because he's a Republican.
No, it's just, well, actually, yes. Because I listen to talk radio. And
I heard
Mark
that
Levine passively, and they oftentimes do that. Like they make the easy to defeat generalizations about critical race theory, or at least they give a leeway for the critical race theories to wiggle out.
Well, you don't need to provide a stillman for the people that are tuning into your show. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're running an opinion show like they are.
Well, Holly steelmans his arguments when he comes out to attack something. Every time I watch him do a speech on something, it is pure steelmanning. He doesn't.
I think he's. I think he's being pretty accurate here.
He's not bad at all.
Criticisms.
Oh, he really does try to. He's a good senator. I don't. His party affiliation isn't what I'm paying attention to. His actions and ability, his legislation has been fantastic because it's very direct and there's no wiggle room in it. And I really appreciate that.
I'm just waiting for whatever bullshit scandal to arise around him because he's attacking the beast.
He's the new flavor, right? So the Dems will be going up, jumping on his ass.
Well, Gates is looking like he's Teflon too, huh?
Yeah, they're all Teflon, dude. Here's the deal: is that they're going after these people because they're terrified.
The only thing Gates is guilty of is liking the party legally.
If they could really make stick shit, they would already done it. You know, so they do the, you know, they send the press after them, you know, through backwards tunnels or whatever you want, channels.
There's another journalist. That's why New York Times is wetting their pants about there being a discovery at the Veritas trial.
Well, they already.
There's another journalist.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a second. Let's let him go on.
All right, yeah.
These critics see a vehicle for discrimination. In our American flag, they see propaganda. In our family businesses, they see white supremacy. In our police officers, they see agents of racial oppression. These critics allow no room for merit, for experience, or for grace in our life together. They pit whiteness and blackness against each other in a manner that reduces every American, no matter their character or their creed, to their racial identity alone. One of these critics, Dr. Ibram Kendi, wrote this: "The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination." That's right. That's what he said. Think about that for a moment. He's saying that he's opposed to equality under the law. He's opposing our merit-based system for federal employment. Dr. Kendi and his followers are in no uncertain terms advocating for state-sanctioned racism in the United States of America. Now, it's a free country. Dr. Kendi and these other authors can write their books and debate their views and put them out in public. It's absolutely their right to do so. They are welcome to do so, but what we cannot allow, what we must not allow, is our federal government to affirm and sanction and advocate this critical race theory. We cannot allow the United States of America, the greatest nation on earth, to legitimize a new era of racial engineering. In the past few years, critical race theory has gained new prominence in the giant corporations, in the media, in the military, even in our children's schools. We're seeing this across the country. We've seen too many of our children exposed to a curriculum like the 1619 Project and its derivatives that encourages division rather than unity, that rewrites our history in the service of an ideological agenda rather than in the service of truth. Young children set off to school with eyes full of hope and hearts full of pride in their country, only to be taught that white privilege defines the nation, that subjects like mathematics are inherently racist, that the Christian faith is oppressive. They're taught that the nuclear family perpetuates racism. Now imagine for a moment if you were taught the same. Imagine if you were taught that your dreams were unjust or unfair, that your family were oppressors, that you were at fault for the problems of our society today. These are just children. We should be nurturing their dreams. We should be nurturing their hopes. We should be giving them a great hope for the future of this great nation known as the United States of America, a hope for the future of the greatest nation in the history of the world, rather than teaching them to mistrust their classmates and to distrust their own history. It doesn't end there. Last year, we discovered that federal agencies and other organizations funded by taxpayers were holding workplace training sessions where federal employees were told that virtually all white people contribute to racism. That's a quote. Or where civil servants were required to say that they benefit from racism. Now, President Trump put an end to this divisive curriculum, and he was right to do so. Workplace diversity training should focus on bringing people together, not on driving them apart. But under this new administration, I fear that critical theory is making a comeback. In March, President Biden rescinded the former president's ban on this divisive curriculum, and now he's nominated Kiran Ahuja to be director of the Office of Personnel Management. That's a key position that runs human resources for the entire federal government and millions of its employees. And Ms. Ahuja's nomination is before the Senate today. I'm concerned that Ms. Ahuja is a disciple of radical critical theorists. She has frequently promoted Dr. Kendi. She called him a thought leader at her confirmation hearing back in April. And just last year, Ms. Ahuja wrote that we must free the nation from the daily trials of white supremacy. Those are her words. She appeared to endorse Dr. Kendi's claim that the election of President Trump in 2016 was an example of racist progress in this country. And she declared that we must do everything in our collective power to realize Dr. Kendi's vision for America. Mr. President, I'm concerned that as the federal government's HR director, Ms. Ahuja could use her platform to promote radical ideologies that seek to divide rather than unite the American people. She could bring critical race theory back into federal government training, into every level of federal personnel, stronger than ever. And I'm not alone in this concern. All of my Republican colleagues on the Homeland Security Committee opposed Ms. Ahuja in a vote back in April. 2 weeks ago, the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, they represent 100,000 federal police officers that protect and defend our nation every day. They announced that they were also concerned about Ms. Ahuja's nomination because of her advocacy of critical theory. I have to say, I agree with federal law enforcement. I agree with what they said in their letter. We should nominate candidates for public office that are committed to ideological neutrality, to fairness, and to impartiality under the law. Now, I want to be clear, Mr. President, I do not for a moment question Ms. Ahuja's sincerity or her integrity. And in fact, I thank her for her willingness to serve the nation. But I cannot agree with what appears to be her fundamental ideology. At the end of the day, this is not about politics or personalities. This is about ensuring that the federal government stands for unity, not division, harmony, not hate. As the Reverend Dr. King famously said, and he was right, we should judge our fellow citizens by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. Mr. President, we need a strong nation with strong citizens who see each other as Americans, not as oppressors or oppressed. Now, I've heard a lot of criticism about my position here today. I've heard the corporate media and those on the left say that I misunderstand critical theory, or that it's not real, or that it's not a real problem. I've heard many say the United States is indeed built on oppression and remains a systemically racist place. All I can say, Mr. President, is that's not the America that I see, and that's not the America that I know. The working people of this country, who have rallied to this nation's flag in every hour of danger, who are the first to help a neighbor in need, who coach our little leagues and volunteer at our churches, who go to work day in and day out to provide for their families and protect the place they call home. These are not oppressors, Mr. President. These are liberators. These are not oppressors, Mr. President. These are great people. They live with a spirit of liberty that has made this country the greatest country in the history of the world, and they want to see that liberty extended to every member of the American family. That's who the American people are. That's what makes them great. That's what they believe. And because they are a great people, Mr. President, our future is a cause for hope and not despair. The advocates of critical theory tell us we have to dismantle our culture, our history, our families, our Jewish and Christian heritage and beliefs because they're all oppressive. They say the future of this nation will be defined by racial division and racial strife. Mr. President, I reject that prophecy of our future, and I take my stand on the goodness of the American people and the God who guides us. I take my stand on hope. Mr. President, it is not oppression that defines the American story. It is hope. From the Minutemen at Lexington and Concord, to the pioneers who found a new life in the West, to the heroes of the Underground Railroad, to the Union soldiers at Little Round Top, to the workers who fought the old monopolies for fair pay, to the women who won suffrage, to the young men who twice liberated Europe, to the civil rights demonstrators who faced down the likes of Bull Connor, to the firemen and police officers who rebuilt New York and gave this country confidence again in the years after 9/11. It is love for one another and love for our country that we call home that has defined our story and given us hope. And that love and that hope will define our future once again. I am confident of it. In this nation, we're not united by ethnic creed or race or religion, and proudly so. We are united by our shared history. We're united by what we love together. We're united by the radical belief that those who liberate others, those who practice grace and mercy, those who call forth the best in those around them, they're the ones who change the world. And that principle, that truth, that hope is what drives our history. And we are not done building that history yet. The greatest nation in the history of the world is not done yet. Critical theory, in all of its guises, distorts our history, it destroys our common loves, and it would leave us hopelessly divided, at enmity with one another, and alone. To this dark vision, we must say no. To radical hope, we must say yes. For these reasons, Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to vote no on Ms. Ahuja's nomination, and I yield the floor.
I didn't realize that whole speech was about one nomination.
Pretty damn good. Sounds like a stump speech, actually.
Yeah, so the whole time I was like trying to find flaws in his speech, and I really couldn't. The only thing I can call out, which of course is impractical for him to interject this into his speech, I'm sure he knows it, is Joe Biden doesn't believe in any of this shit, right? Like, this is just what his handlers are telling him he needs to do.
You don't know that, though,
we've
man.
talked about this. I don't know it. Yeah, I have a very, just based on the situational evidence of Joe Biden's past remarks and his current cognitive ability, I'm pretty sure that he is just doing what his handlers are telling him to. On top of that, I also believe that the Democratic Party just see this as a power vehicle for them.
Absolutely.
Which I've talked about many, many times on this stream. You can go back and watch.
Well, okay, first of all, he's the reason you can't knock evangelicals, because their sermons are a lot like that speech. It all focuses on hope and grace. So be nice to the Bible Belt. There's a whole lot of people like him there.
Yeah, well, Josh Hawley's also obviously from, and we talked about this before, and I've determined that there's two types of religious people. There's the ones that look down, which is literally what CRT does, right? Those are the fire and brimstone.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like
Yes.
man is just victim to their sin and irredeemable. And then there's the people that look up, and they just are like, hey, we just want answers and to be better people. And this is a very look up type of speech.
Yes. I think
CRT is literally a religion that looks down. Their God is all their presuppositions that aren't supported by evidence. But it says exactly what he said, that, you know, all white people are irredeemably racist. The only thing we can do is confront our racism, dismantle our entire society, liberal society specifically, right? And start anew based on these pretenses that we have. That is the writings of a religion that looks down.
Well, it sounds a lot like the Puritans when you distill it.
Yep.
It's very limiting. It's a very odd cult. It's usually restrictive cults die out really fast. So I'm not sure what this one is all about. Kind of fascinates me and terrifies me. Because I'm like, how can you have an entire culture based on such psychotic ideas? But I want to say that the one thing he did really, really well is he made CRT digestible for the average person.
He did a lot of things really well. So first off, he did that. So when he was describing what CRT was, and then saying more broadly just critical theory, he was fairly accurate. I mean, he was using terms that you could quote out of books that are written about CRT, right? These are all things we've talked about many times. So there was nothing objectionable as to how he described CRT. He was completely accurate. The other thing he did that was really good is that he talked about American history using examples and talked about the liberal experiment as one of progress on these issues, not as one of, you know, continuing failures, which is, I think, really important for people to understand, because even though he didn't say it, he juxtaposed that against what critical theory believes about American history, where in CRT, they say we've never really gotten rid of slavery. We've never really gotten rid of racism in America. All we've done is make it change form. Like, things have never actually gotten better. We've just changed the way it looks.
Sure, that's why the quantity of mixed race individuals in America has, like, I don't know, something like quadrupled since the civil rights era, but okay.
And the vast majority of these changes happened before anybody had any fucking clue what CRT was. it didn't even exist when most of these changes happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was still an idea sitting at the Frankfurt School, gathering
Also-
mold on a shelf.
I also love how, whether intentionally or inadvertently, he because he was talking about accusation laid against him for opposing the critical race theory. And there's only two options. You either don't understand it, or you are trying to uphold white supremacy. And that's basically what he said, where the accusations levied at him is, you either don't understand it, or you just want to uphold the system of white supremacy because it benefits you. Because those are the only two arguments that CRT will accept against it. Those are the only two motives for arguments against it.
Well, I would argue that absolutely it does benefit me and you and Irate and everybody in the chat and everybody around the world. The system benefits them. I don't want to take down a system that benefits fucking everyone.
It turns out like some form of liberal democracy is kind of the best we've got in a society, right?
Mm-hmm.
This idea that we have inalienable rights based on philosophy of first principles, and that we elect our leaders to carry out restricted functions, and for the most part, to one degree or another, we embrace freedom. And in those situations, like societies that do a good job of that have tended to prosper over time, which is why you look at abject poverty over the years, and we went from like 80% of the world population to 10% over the course of less than a century.
It's been, well, okay, so we made tremendous progress as a society in about 50 years, and then we watched, I kid you not, less than 5 years, and everything is starting to crumble.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they want to do, right? The critical theorists do want it to crumble because they need it to restart. This is where, when you say it's Marxian or Marxist, like, yeah, it's not exactly what Marx advocated for, but it's this idea that this is, what we have going in liberal democracy is unsustainable, and we have to get rid of it and implement our socialist utopia.
But the socialist utopia isn't going to work.
Well, I know. I mean,
nature.
Marx's predictions were wrong, which is actually the reason critical theory came about in the first place. And we've talked about this plenty of times on stream, right? The critical theorists came along and they were just like, what's going on, right? Like, we've already decided that Marx was right about everything, but then we look at places like the United States, and the working class doesn't seem to care because they're prospering compared to the rest of the world. So how can we fix that? All right, let's make it about social issues instead.
Yeah. Well, it was the only way to get a foot in. The class issue doesn't work in a society that has economic mobility. So,
and then once we integrate that whole critical theory thing, where it's the oppressed versus the oppressor versus the proletariat versus the bourgeois, then you add in the postmodernist element where you can literally just make shit up because truth doesn't matter. And bitch
about it.
Yep. And you get where we are today.
Well, okay, so I think what people don't understand is that post-Marxism and what we're looking at in critical theory, they forget about the history of it. And the post-Marxists were literally just lamenting and bitching. This entire philosophy and ideology is based off of people lamenting and bitching that their utopia isn't possible.
Once again, like, critical theory actually has no, like, when they say disrupt and dismantle, they have no actual plan to do anything at all.
Hey,
they just think that as long as they get everybody to believe in this critical theory, and that everything will happen, structure society around it, that everything will organize itself into this perfect utopian way where racism is abolished, and I don't know, we're all fucking shitting Skittles every day.
All right, Window Liquor donates too and says, why don't Alabamians do reverse cowgirl? Because you don't turn your back on your family. Salute, my dude. All right.
I know,
Sorry.
we do have a few more people in the chat that I typed it out, but I want to go ahead and give them a shout out. 34 Shota, welcome. Michael Hatfield, I said what's up in the chat. Joshua Dimmers, I think he just joined. We have Madness, Toya, Gaming and Yelling joined in, saying he's gonna playing with his kittens and listening in the background. Evil Dead Ed, he's here now. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did.
Yes. You
Who'd I
missed
miss?
Johnny Hellcat. I want to say hi to everybody.
I did miss Johnny Hellcat.
Sorry, everybody. I'm not typing in the chat today. My shoulder is very angry from typing in the chat last night. So I'm not going to try that again today. Okay, guys? Okay, sorry, but I'm not trying it.
All right, so what we have next is after that great speech, Ibram Kendi went on the Joy Reid show, and they're doing a response. And I have not watched this at all. Like, I watched a little bit of Josh Hawley's speech, but it was very cookie cutter. It was a good speech, though. He got all his points through. I think he nailed it, and I'm going to be really surprised if they can poke any holes in what he said without lying. So. Without further ado, Irate, let's play.
All right, so you ready to roll with the Joy Reid? Yeah, and
Claims of reverse racism have been the bread and butter of the modern Republican Party for decades. And now they have a new boogeyman to latch on to, critical race theory. The term has become the cause celeb for Republicans across the land.
What this is it's a CRT theory, but it manifests in sort of this anti-racism training. All of this stuff is connected. The primary thread that links them all together is this. America institutions are inherently racist.
Suddenly they're finding out that their local school is teaching them that America is fundamentally racist. That's all a lie. That's all poison, and it's being poured into the minds of our kids.
Critical theory is an ideology that says the United States is rotten to its core. The leaders of this movement think our society is defined by white supremacy. Critical theory, in all of its guises, distorts our history, it destroys our common loves, and it would leave us hopelessly divided.
Critical theory is a whole other thing. Anyway, this weekend, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson told a crowd of Republican supporters that he's more panicked than ever about the state of the country, and the Republicans should, quote, take back our school boards, our county boards, our city councils. We will take back our culture.
Just go back and listen again. She did just say, never mind all that. Critical theory is something totally different, but whatever. No.
Critical theory is a whole other thing. Anyway, this weekend, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson told a crowd of Republican supporters that he's more panicked than ever about the state of the country, and the Republicans should, quote, take back our school boards, our county boards, our city councils. We will take back our culture. What exactly is our culture, Senator? And who's the our in that sentence? And who decides? You see, what these politicians are objecting to is a factual analysis of our history, warts and all. But what they're doing is far more pernicious. They've taken legitimate calls for critical self.
Yeah, lie.
Kettle.
That was a lie.
Hot. Kettle.
That was a lie.
But it's retarded on its face. You can't say, who is it to decide when somebody says the people are trying to take back their culture? Well, who is it to decide? Are you fucking retarded?
Well, and she also lied about how it's a factual analysis because it doesn't use facts. It doesn't believe in it. It is actually a 100% subjective analysis, which they believe is completely fine because they don't believe in objective truth, and that the lived experiences of the people is more important than what liberal objectivity would be able to provide. There's a reason they had to come up with critical theory instead of traditional theories, because traditional theories require us to use something that at least approximates the scientific method, uses
That's just the
Enlightenment principles
Socratic method.
in order to come to provisional truths about a situation. And critical theory, it escapes all that. So it's a straight up lie to say that it's a factual analysis, because not even the critical theorist would claim it to be a factual analysis. They can't, because they don't believe in objective truth.
Mm.
And that's problematic.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying she's making a claim that critical theorists can't make. They don't. They actual critical theorists that are writing and influencing this ideology, they don't say it's a factual analysis.
No, you're right. They don't.
The word fact is not in their lexicon.
Right, because they know that there's nothing whatsoever that backs up their assertions.
There doesn't need to be. The term fact is so foreign, and it's a dysfunctional word to them. It's like forsooth for us.
All right, we'll let her go on.
Reflection and demonized it into a catch-all phrase that they now wield as a political cudgel. They're so obsessed with owning the libs that they make bizarre statements like this one.
I thought General Milley totally missed the point last week. He says, well, I read Mao and I read Stalin. That's nothing to do with it. You know, we read Mein Kampf in school. No one thought we were Nazis.
People didn't read Mein Kampf in school.
Yes, we did.
Some people, yeah,
Fuck
we did.
you.
Some
We
people
didn't.
did, man. See, she doesn't know that shit.
You didn't, because you're a diversity hire at MSNBC. Was that racist? No. She's
No,
just
I'm
dumb.
sorry. You didn't get into the upper classes for history and stuff. You were in the remedial classes, the ones that I fucking tutored.
Or she was
you
a
dumb
broadcasting
cow.
major, you know.
But
Which is, hey, that's no disparity on that, man. It's just it's a different animal, and it's not academic, you know. It's not academically rigorous.
We did read Mein Kampf in high school. It was part of our European literature course.
It was actually a big deal for us to study, like, how this
Oh
could
my
happen, how such a tyranny could happen in a European country back in the 1940s.
Jesus fuck, my mother, and she
And
was
how-
born in 1950, and she read Mein Kampf in school. What the fuck is this bitch talking about? My son was, oh my god, okay, my son's 31, and he was assigned Mein Kampf in school. What the fuck is this bitch talking about?
So
And he was in California.
I know for a fact that we were never assigned the full book, but we had excerpts that were sent to us, like, as part of, like, you need to read this, the translation to English, and we're going to talk about it and how that, you know, motivated the Nazi Party and got them into prominence, right? So,
Oh, no.
it probably depends on the school, but almost everybody
Yeah,
was
possibly.
exposed to some of the text from Mein Kampf.
Sorry, that just made me mad. We didn't read Mein Kampf. Well, okay, sure. Maybe if you were in the fucking class with the dyslexic kids, or, you know, the kid that was known for stabbing other people. But other than that, everybody...
I love how she hasn't even gotten to an argument and has already said some shit that's so stupid that we know this is going to be bullshit. Right? You learn about World War II is, like, in your history classes, is one of the biggest things that's covered. Right? We all read the diary. We certainly all read the Diary of Anne Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you read the Diary of Anne Frank in like 5th or 6th grade, though. You read that really young.
Yeah.
But you read Mein Kampf and oh my God, the Communist Manifesto, or at least we did. During our World War II education in high school took up almost our entire 10th grade year.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. Like, it should be taught. Like, you should know whenever we're looking at history, you should have Mein Kampf in the lexicon. Like, if you're going to talk about World War II and the writings behind Adolf Hitler and what made him rise to power, you have to read Mein Kampf.
Well, and
at least some of it. You don't have to read the whole book, but you have to know about it and know what it says.
Right. And she obviously is disingenuous. She's the, I guess MSNBC's equivalent to Brian Stelter, right? She's just she's just commentary, really, and she's really not.
That's not even commentary. This is a propagandist.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
She's CIA trained, truth be told.
Uh-oh. You think she glows?
How could you be this retarded naturally? You have to be trained to be this stupid. Sorry.
Oh, Lordy. Glow in the dark.
Welcome Tailfin to the chat. The only unraised person.
Oh. Tailfin. Okay. I saw Tailfin. I thought I gave you Rich last night. Anyway, let me look.
Another common feature of the freakout is to name and blame particular black public intellectuals who are not even involved in critical race theory. One of those black public intellectuals is Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, author of the best-selling book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and the founder and director of the Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research. And he joins me
from Boston, the home of Harvard.
Now,
what? Did they just say, did she just say Ibram Kendi has nothing to do with critical race theory?
Yeah. She did. They're How to Be an Anti-Racist, the most popular dispensed book by critical theorists across the board, internationally.
Well, I'd love to hear this. Is Ibram Kendi no longer considering himself a?
Let's listen to what he says.
Author of the best-selling book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and the founder and director of the Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research. And he joins me now. Professor Kendi, thank you so much for being here. I have been the whole sort of co-opting of the term critical race theory and then planting it onto really anti-racism has been an astonishing thing to watch. One of the astonishing features of it is that they've decided that you are the main person responsible for doing that. So I just want to very quickly get this off the table. Are you a critical race theorist?
So I've certainly been inspired by critical race theory. I certainly admire critical race theory, but at the same time, I wasn't trained on critical race theory. I didn't go to law school, and so I don't necessarily identify as a critical race theorist.
Oh my God!
Yeah, right. You'd have to go to law school to be one, right? And you just
school. No.
No, I know what they're trying to do. I know what she's trying to do.
Right, fucking lie. You know where I learned about critical race theory? Philosophy courses.
Yeah, so
his answer is very, very slippery shit, right?
Yeah, but he was going back to the whole thing where critical race theory did start in law. Okay, that is true. Yes.
But where does law come from? Where did law school originate? Where did law school originate, Excel?
The universities?
No. Law schools originated out of philosophy schools.
Yeah, sure. What I'm saying is, like, he's going back, and you could narrowly say, well, critical race theory started in the legal academy, which is absolutely true. But whenever you go to your critical studies class in college,
it's a philosophy.
It's not a law. It's not a law course. Right.
No, it's philosophical. It's weird philosophical shit that's used in legal context.
Yeah. So what
and it's always for whataboutism for legal terms.
Yeah. So what Ibram Kendi basically said is, like, for the purposes of this, I need to bounce around some things a little bit and say, well, I guess I'm not a theorist, even though everything I write is based on that and influenced by that. And even the term anti-racism, Kendi didn't found that. That also came from critical race theorists. So I don't know. We'll see what else he has to say.
Anti-racism was a really stupid movement started by the Sharps in the early 90s in Southern California, and you can actually go find people that have anti-racism shit tattooed on their backs and their arms right now.
Yep. anti-racist as like a proper
It
understanding
was a
of the term,
straight edge
right?
term.
Yeah, like an understanding of the term that is normal to people, which is anti being an actual racist as understood through the lens of the liberal definition of racism, which is believing that certain people are inferior based on the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what anti-racism, as far as Kendi is concerned, is. It is a broader concept that is, as he said himself, well, it's heavily influenced by CRT.
All right, you ready, Ron?
Made that point very well.
This is all parsing. Yeah. This is all parsing of words and mincing of things.
Which is what critical theorists love to do.
It is, and it's gross.
They love that mushy language, right? You know, it's like a shit.
But they don't either. They don't know really what it is either. But here is Senator Josh Hawley, sort of one of the worst sort of offenders here, slamming you by name.
Dr. Ibram Kendi wrote this: "The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination." That's right. That's what he said. Think about that for a moment. He's saying that he's opposed to equality under the law. Dr. Kendi and his followers are in no uncertain terms advocating for state-sanctioned racism.
Something really, really, really obvious. Okay, so what he said is Kendi is saying that the only way to deal with present racism, which is anti-white racism, is that in the future, whites are going to be racist against everybody else. That's what he just said.
Yeah, I mean,
He just said, "Are you serious? You're calling for the rise of another white ethno nation? Are you serious?"
well, yeah, and they don't see it that way. That is most certainly the response you're going to get if you go down these lines. I'm more curious as to how Ibram Kendi is going to wiggle around his own words, or if he's even going to try.
Right. All right. So this because Josh
I
Hawley.
wanted to point out the ridiculous stupidity of that statement he said that probably sounded pretty in his head when he wrote it down to say it, but it is fucking useless and really stupid when it's actually uttered out loud.
Well, let's try to hear a single thought come out. All right, as a reaction, like I want to hear this guy.
She just lies so goddamn much. Sorry.
All right, and then we'll juxtapose it. I want to hear Kendi's response directly to the terms of past racism, current racism, and then future racism.
Dr. Ibram Kendi wrote this: "The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination." That's right. That's what he said. Think about that for a moment. He's saying that he's opposed to equality under the law. Dr. Kendi and his followers are in no uncertain terms advocating for state-sanctioned racism.
Okay, now, given the fact that they can't seem to quote Dr. King accurately, I'm just going to assume that they're misquoting you or getting the wrong context. Can you explain, please, what that quote, even if it's an accurate quote, what it means?
She just led him with her statement. Did you catch
Even
that?
if it's accurate. Yeah, even if it's accurate, what does it mean?
Well, no, she's saying she gave him an out. Listen.
Okay, now, given the fact that they can't seem to quote Dr. King accurately,
Yeah.
I'm just going to assume that they're misquoting you or getting the wrong context. Can you
Right
explain,
there.
please, what that quote, even if it's an accurate quote, what it
It
means?
was a slight.
Sure. So Joy, we recognized as a nation.
No, she gave him an out. That's what I was trying to say. Is that she was putting an answer in his mouth before he said anything.
Well, and I'm going to assume that's some journalism.
Right, exactly. That's horrible journalism. That's not journalism at all.
Please, what that quote, even if it's an accurate quote, what it means?
Sure. So Joy, we recognized as a nation that elderly people were dying at the highest rates were the most vulnerable to COVID-19. So we decided that it was best to provide vaccine to those people first. No one described that as a bad policy. But young people could have said, hey, you're discriminating against us. And we would have responded, well, older people are dying at the highest rates. Should they not receive vaccine first? But if we would have then started thinking about, oh, Black people are also dying at the highest rates from COVID-19, maybe they should also receive maybe they should also receive vaccine first. Maybe we should have a system in which those who have the greatest needs are provided with what they need, but they call that reverse discrimination. They call that discrimination.
Well,
they're against that. How are we going to create equity and justice for all if we're...
Yeah, so this is a really dumb argument. So he's doing this hypothetical about Black people dying at a higher
whataboutism?
rate.
Is this not whataboutism?
It's not whataboutism. It's a dumb argument. It's a non sequitur, right? So,
all right.
You have the situation where we know that old people are more vulnerable to a virus based on objective data that we can consume, right? And we can actually narrow it down to the fact that they are old. This is the only reason it is more deadly to them, right? So we're going to prioritize it to people that are old because we objectively know that it is more deadly to them, right?
First of all,
what he's trying to do is compare this. Like, this is where he's going to go, is Black people are dying to like police more often, for example. Right. And then we look at why, and we objectively know it's because because of the disparity in crimes, right? We actually see a huge difference based on not only the arrest rate, but the victims accusing people of these crimes.
No. The disparity he's talking about, I can explain it because I grew up around a bunch of minorities. We were talking about this earlier. I was one of the few white kids in the neighborhood I grew up in. Minorities don't trust the government because they remember the Tuskegee Airmen. They remember the crack epidemic.
Well, they remember AIDS. And the Russian propaganda that AIDS was created by the U.S. to kill Black people and gay people.
To wipe out the fringes of society.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, no, minority communities, especially the Black community, because it's been kind of really fucking personal for them. So what they're conflating here is a lot of Black people and a lot of people in minority communities, they won't go to the hospital. They won't. If they're poor, they just won't go to the hospital because they don't fucking trust it.
Well, no, that goes right into what I was trying to say, which is,
okay.
Like, whenever you see disparities, like, there can be a lot of reasons for it, right? Like, whenever you talk about Black people getting shot by cops, why there's a disparity there, well, it kind of lines up exactly with the crime rate, right? And then you talk about this, and it lines up exactly with the people that are willing to seek help from the hospital. Like, there's other reasons than racism to suggest that's the problem, right? Like, different group on action.
From a century ago is what it is. Okay, it's racism from a century ago, and it's also
and the solution to that is.
Well, I was going to say the crack epidemic was used as an excuse to crack down on the drug war. Okay.
And forfeit and seizure, asset seizure.
Forfeiture, the asset forfeiture shit. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it really honestly had nothing to do with Black people. It just had to do with targeting a community that they knew was going to get hooked on the drug really easily. And they were finding
which was Black people. I mean, to some degree, come on.
Well, they were finding it hard to get white people addicted to crack. And we didn't have the meth thing going yet. And that's where white people actually outnumber addiction when it comes to Black people, is with meth and
meth is on the same
opioids
as Yeah, no opioids.
Yeah.
In fact, they're all on the same level.
But
what Ibram Kendi's trying to say here is he's actually like making a type of discrimination that makes sense. Like, you would obviously discriminate if you knew that population X has a factual basis for being more susceptible to dying from a virus than population Y. All right, of course, you're going to be like, okay, so if we're going to
check the chat.
Our goal is to like maximize or minimize the number of deaths, then we're going to target the population that is most likely to die if we don't give it to them.
Ain't nobody, not me. Yeah, I was going to say, Object of Hate says, did you see the Charlottesville took down the Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson statues today when nobody was looking? Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Well, it's like, all right, so we're gonna discount and not acknowledge all the white people who died for this country to be, to have no slavery.
Freedom for everybody.
Exactly. And which is there was a bloody fucking war. It was the nastiest as nasty gets. People would argue between that and World War One, but I don't know.
I think the Civil War was more personal.
Yeah, no shit, man. It left ripples in the water for years to come, as I fear this horse shit that we're going through right now will.
I think it will. I can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. This is no good, and people like this are really, really, really making it worse.
Yeah, and whatever. It looks like SMDH, as they say.
Well, it's really interesting. This has never happened before, but when my daughters go to the pool now, the brown kids won't play with them anymore. Even when they try to approach them, a lot of them won't even talk to them.
I wonder why.
That's never happened before. It's very interesting how things have changed in just 2 years. Because we didn't get any public time like that. But anyway, go ahead.
Providing the same resources to middle-income people as we're providing to billionaires.
Yeah, this is the same theory under which they have gone after black farmers receiving benefits when they have only 14% of the land at this point. They've been stripped of their land. But then they're saying that white farmers need to get all the rest. All the benefits need to go to white farmers, or it's reverse discrimination. They're doing that in court. Stephen Miller is part of that. I just want to ask another couple questions just to make sure that we're getting everything clear. Do you believe that white Americans are inherently racist?
Oh, I do not. And indeed, in How to Be an Anti-Racist, I make the case that we shouldn't believe that anyone is inherently racist, or that we should identify anyone as a racist. And I make the case that racist isn't a fixed category. It's a descriptive term that describes what a person is being in any given moment based on what they're doing or saying. And so if a person is saying Black people are lazy, they're being racist. But in the very next moment, they're advocating a policy that creates justice and equity for all. They're being anti-racist.
Okay. And do you know of any schools that are teaching that?
Totally bullshitted. Totally bullshitted, because I can find an easy way that is absolutely, completely untrue.
Well, in his own words, is
Black teens are fucking lazy because all teens are fucking lazy.
Yeah, well, also in his own words, he said, like, he says, like, there's no such thing as not racist. That's a big part of how to be an anti-racist. It is actually, like, in the first chapter of the book. He's like, you're either racist or you're anti-racist. Like he so there's he played a little semantic game.
Yeah.
Like, so you could what he was saying is you could be racist at one moment and be anti-racist at another moment, but he does not believe there's such thing as not racist. To be anti-racist is to subscribe to his ideology, which if he's not a critical race theorist, he certainly has a lot in common with him. So we'll just leave it at that.
I think even people that buy into everything that's said on MSNBC are going to come out of this a little confused because Ibram he's couching everything too much.
Well, and he's being led by Joy-Ann Reid to not answer the questions the way he would if the questions were up front and not loaded.
Yeah. Yeah. And
there's definitely prep going on there.
Yeah. And she's big mad about everybody else having legislation shut down. She's big mad about how like their racism isn't being allowed. She's big mad about it. Because what she's failing to mention is that black farmers were actually less likely per capita to be not functioning still during the lockdown. They were actually more solvent. Okay, like it's really interesting.
Oh man, it's like she's mad that they're not getting the same benefits. It's kind of like I'm sure. Well, I'm sure Miss Reed here would agree with the idea of student loan forgiveness. And what she's basically saying is, well, you know what? I'm not in favor of the people that actually pay their student loans.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I don't want to help them.
I was going to ask you. So it's like, do you really think she's paid off her student loans?
Now that she works for MSNBC, probably.
Oh, I'm sure the accountant did it for her.
Maybe that's the right answer, probably. So something inside of me tells me that even if she had the money to pay that shit back, she wouldn't pay it.
Before that, no. She is hired by MSNBC to be a blackface on liberal black issues.
That sounds rather racist, sir.
It is racist.
I don't know if I can.
It is racist because CRT is racist. Like when people have that outlook, like racism
but
prevails.
He says it's not.
In this way.
He says it's anti-racist.
Okay, but anti-racist is a double negative that doesn't exist. So I don't know.
Yes, I want to chew my tongue. I want to swallow my own tongue.
You know, my 9-year-old. It may be my fault. I don't know. Maybe she's overhearing my videos. I don't know. But this child is fucking based, dude. She wants, she thinks Trump was a decent president. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know this? We've watched some of his speeches and we haven't really talked much about the presidency in front of our kids because we don't really want to get them all into the craziness going on right now.
You know, all you could possibly do is try to indoctrinate your kid yourself because they're fucking 9. There's nothing you can do.
What the fuck, dude? It's like, holy shit. I guess it's just been kind of vicarious, but she thinks Trump is all right, but she's like, no, if they're going to try to take stuff away from us, we need to tell them to go suck a poo-poo. And I'm like, all right, dude, we're sitting in the middle of a fucking restaurant. Now, we live right outside of Portland, y'all. And there's a lot of Portlanders that come out to this fucking Asian restaurant we're going to, right? We're sitting in this place and we're getting our food served. And somebody says something about the current president. And she looks up, puts her little hands up and says, y'all elected a pedo. Why did y'all elect a pedo? And she's looking at all the other adults, kind of in general, but there's 2 of my husband's coworkers. They're Texans, so obviously, you know what I mean? And everybody at the table's laughing because she just really loudly, Texas style, went, why on earth did y'all elect a pedo? And it was fantastic, but terrifying at the same moment. It was just wonderful. So there is hope, guys.
Elfin, you can take comfort in the fact that Atima does not send her kids to public school.
Yeah, I homeschool, just so y'all know.
Yeah. We needed to fund the fucking
teachers teachers unions need to be banned.
That they need to be dried up.
And the Department of Education needs to be nothing more than a set of criterion that children must know. It needs to be just a set of guidelines for what public schools have to offer students. And that's it. If we're going to have this stupid department, that's all it needs to be, is a set of criterion based on age.
It actually
what
could.
each child is supposed to learn.
It could be absorbed into
Curriculum.
another department with less functions and not exist.
Yes. Yes. It could just not exist. That would be great.
But anyway, that's
we
our
need to go back. Yeah. Don't
That's
even
our-
get me
that's-
started on the education
this
system,
is-
guys.
that's our
Holy shit.
libertarianism bleeding through.
Oh no, you're gonna watch my anarchism just fucking slap everybody upside the head with that one. So, sorry. I hate the public school system, and I don't think it should exist. I think there should be no such thing. I think all public unions need to be banned, Gun Fox. I totally and completely agree.
I agree too.
Oh, no. No. Public education is awful. It's really, really, really bad, and we need to take apart the unions that are running it. And it needs to be nothing like it is now. And we need to go back to the idea of meritocracy.
I have that on my on hold list along with the Project Veritas thing that you talked about earlier. So let's get through the rest of this video.
Okay.
Okay.
Anti-racist.
Okay. And do you know of any schools that are teaching that white Americans are inherently racist? Have you ever heard of any school that's teaching that anywhere?
I haven't. And indeed, I would speak out against that school if it was doing it.
And
Good
we
job.
now know
Good
that
job.
one of the groups
I'm gonna
that
email
is
him, by the way. Let's we'll find after the show and we'll post it on Twitter. Ibram Kendi's email address. We'll find it, and we'll find all the places that have that in the curriculum. I can find 10 just off of James Lindsay's Twitter feed right now, where it's in their curriculum. So we'll do that. We're gonna email him, and we're like, "Hey, will you please come out and condemn this?" Yep, he did.
He just said he would.
I got receipts, motherfucker. Like, let's go. Condemn it, please.
I haven't. And indeed, I would speak out against that school if it was doing it.
And we now know that one of the groups that is under attack from the same people who are attacking you are the military, particularly military generals, including the Secretary of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair, General Milley. He's now been attacked by Donald Trump, Matt Gaetz, who never served and probably wouldn't have the guts to serve for 10 seconds, nor would Tucker Carlson, nor...
What about Abraham Kendi? Did he serve? Joy, while you're making observations there, Joy, you think your guest served in the military? I don't think so.
Well, and the irony is they had Dan Crenshaw, who lost an eye in battle.
Yes.
As at the beginning of this, he was also speaking out against it.
Yeah.
So we'll just conveniently put that person on the list now.
Yeah.
I
I just busted that bitch. So that was a legit bust, I think.
with Laura Ingraham. They've all gone after him. Bill Kristol has called that out as sort of ground level fascism. He said Trump voters are pro-military. Why are Trump and Carlson attacking the military? But the attack is on woke generals, the brass, and disloyal citizens in charge. It's an attempt to appeal to aggrieved troops and vets and to divide the military and subvert civilian control. It's a classic move from the authoritarian playbook and also from the fascist playbook. What do you make of the fact that people like Trump wanted to use the military to attack Black Lives Matter protesters specifically? He wanted them, and Milley refused, by the way. They got in a cussing match. He said, I'm not doing that. But that they don't believe that the military should study whether there are racists and white nationalists in the military, because some of those folks attacked the Capitol. What do you make of that dichotomy?
It's a lie. Like that's just
I mean,
not.
I think it's pure sort of insanity that's presented as logic. And the fact of the matter is American armed forces have a white supremacist problem, and the leaders have recognized that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. What? No. Okay, hold on.
It's a lie.
I can't. That's an outright lie because my son was in the Army and he was at the largest military base in America, and that is Fort Hood. And I used to go visit him all the time. And I will tell you this, there is nothing more interesting and diverse and multicultural than going into a barracks area, especially if there's family housing near it. Because you get to meet people from all over the fucking place. And they have every right to go after the brass in this fashion. Because the brass has never listened to the troops. And the troops
Huge
are really
disconnect.
mean people to listen.
Absolutely.
Shit. So
Yeah.
fuck these people. They're so goddamn out of touch and they have no idea what they're talking about. Because I'll tell you, no, Fort Hood is fucking amazing, dude. It's such a wonderful snapshot of all the diversity that America includes and all the different people that come
So
together.
there's an active witch. There's an active witch hunt against quote extremists and white identitarians, et cetera, right? And what they're doing is they're creating bogeymen or boogeymen, as we say in the South, out of thin air, and that's part of. And he is feeding right into that mindset. When he made his when he just made that statement, I think we're going to hear a little bit of it again. Okay.
That the military should study whether there are racists and white nationalists in the military, because some of those folks attacked the Capitol. What do you make of that dichotomy?
What?
I mean, I think it's.
What? I'm going to back that up because she just.
Yeah.
It sounded like
she randomly inserted January 6th into this conversation after citing Bill Kristol, one of the neocons that has never given a shit about any other issue other than we need to go to as many wars as possible.
Let's see.
People like Trump wanted to use the military to attack Black Lives Matter protesters specifically. He wanted them, and Milley refused, by the way. They got in a cussing match. He said, I'm not doing that. But that they don't believe that the military should study whether there are racists and white nationalists in the military, because some of those folks attacked the Capitol. What do you make of that dichotomy?
I mean, I think it's pure sort of insanity that's presented as logic. And the fact of the matter is American armed forces have a white supremacist problem, and the leaders have recognized that, and those leaders have decided that the way in which you address that issue is by teaching people to be anti-racist, by teaching people to recognize the racial groups as equals. And it's fascinating. And we've learned this year that the Republican Party isn't pro-cop, because if they were pro-cop, they would have responded differently to the Capitol insurrection. And we're showing now they're not even pro-military. These are wedges and terms and constructs they use and they lie about them just as they lie about anti-racism and critical race theory and the 1619 Project.
Wow.
And your book really took off after the George Floyd murder, and so did Robin DiAngelo's book.
A mark of the liar.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, he just
It's one of
highlighted
those things,
everybody.
like it kind of sucks, but it's absolutely true. Like, people that are the most likely to call other people liars all the time are usually liars.
Yes, that's a typical liberal projection thing they got.
And I know I did it like plenty of times. I accused people of lies.
Yeah,
but
you spotted, you got it, is what we say.
But what I said, I pretense that with is they're either going to lie or deflect. Like, I knew ahead of time what their strategy was going to be.
Right. All right, and I do need to acknowledge that we got a dono on the slabs. Thank you very much from Giver of Gifts. Y'all should support our rate by donating $2 so he can take Uzi out for seafood dinner. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that sentiment, and I concur.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, Nothing like good old fish market. What we have a place called Fish Market. It's run by Greek people, man. It's the best fish on the planet, and it's fresh, Gulf fresh fish every fucking day.
I'm going to a restaurant called Morning Thunder tomorrow morning, and they specialize in breakfast foods.
Green burritos.
That would be kind of cool too. But it's actually a Grateful Dead themed place.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm gonna go have an amazing West Coast stoner breakfast for my birthday.
Well, congrats. I'm not a big deadhead, man. I'm not big on the dead. But hey, I don't judge. Well, actually, I do.
Well,
sometimes.
dude, I got dreadlocks down to my ass. Are you surprised that I listen to the Dead? I fucking
Not at
followed
all.
them for a
Not at
while.
all.
Yeah.
No. You can hear Jerry noodling. I dig it. I can. All right, ready?
You address that issue is by teaching people to be anti-racist, by teaching people to recognize the racial groups as equals. And it's fascinating. And we've learned this year that the Republican Party isn't pro-cop, because if they were pro-cop, they would have responded differently to the Capitol insurrection. And they're certainly, we're showing now, they're not even pro-military. These are wedges and terms and constructs they use, and they lie about them, just as they lie about anti-racism and critical race theory and the 1619 Project.
And your book really took off after the George Floyd murder, and so did Robin DiAngelo's book, White Rage, or I believe that's the name of her book. Do you think that that the right is using the George Floyd movement and the fact that white Americans saw what happened to George Floyd and said, oh my God, we need to question whether or not there is structural racism in our society, that's what this is about? This is about white Americans having woken up to what happened to George Floyd, and now the right wants to stop that.
I mean, if you're an elected official, if you're a white elected official who has been instituting policies that have harmed the majority of white Americans, and all the while you've been convincing those very white Americans that you're fighting for them, that you're instituting policies that help them, that you're teaching them that the cause of their pain are people of color, you're not going to want them to wake up. You're not going to want them to understand racism, because then they're going to see you as a problem and vote you out.
There you go.
Who was doing that?
If you flip that description, he just described the Democratic Party's attitude towards blacks.
No.
Did you just fucking catch that shit?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I was like, who the fuck are you talking about? You're just making shit up.
Shake this shit up, man. Listen specifically exactly what he says, because you can argue easily that that's what the Democratic Party has been doing to the black people.
Is this motherfucker a
since the
Dixie
60s.
Crat? Like, holy shit.
No shit, man.
Listen to what he's fucking saying, though, Irate.
Yes. Listen
You
to
heard the same shit I have.
That's right.
Using the George Floyd movement and the fact that white Americans saw what happened to George Floyd and said, oh my God, we need to question whether or not there is structural racism in our society, that's what this is about. This is about white Americans having woken up to what happened to George Floyd, and now the right wants to stop that.
I mean, if you're an elected official, if you're a white elected official who has been instituting policies that have harmed the majority of white Americans, and all the while you've been convincing those very white Americans that you're fighting for them, that you're instituting policies that help them, that you're teaching them that the cause of their pain are people of color, you're not going to want them to wake up. You're not going to want them to understand racism, because then they're going to see you as a problem and vote you out.
There you go. There you go. And if you're anti-racist, think about what that says that you actually are. Ibram X. Kendi, I'm so glad you could be here, author of How to Be an Anti-Racist. Thank you.
I'm not a moron, and I wouldn't be any of that. Do you need a lobotomy, lady? That forehead, how little hair does she actually possess? Because
just got a lobotomy.
Fuck, dude. Like, I think Grace Jones' forehead is smaller. I'm an asshole. I know, guys. I'm sorry.
No, really, like, we listened to Holly's full speech, and this was supposed to be the reply to it.
Yeah, no shit.
I think, like, was that a reply to it? Like, I don't even know. They went on some tangents and just said some dumb shit, and I don't get how they discredited Holly at all.
It's like they're on muscle relaxers and edibles too. Because
Explains
that's
a
my
lot.
excuse is, that's my excuse for not being able to hold my thought and having to grab it and drag it back to where it was. Is I hurt my shoulder, so I'm very medicated right now so that I'm not tempted to go do really dumb shit that'll actually hurt me more. So
I'm going to go back to the media, right? Like, we just watched that. I don't know if there's much left to say, right? We talked about Holly's speech. We saw this response. The response was bullshit. Like, it doesn't, I can't even tie most of what they said back to what Josh Hawley was saying. I really can't. Like, they didn't really refute him, did they? I mean, they used some ad hominem things, which were like, oh, it's a boogeyman or whatever. But they didn't disagree it was real.
he dropped out a red herring that was completely unrelated. It wasn't even a non sequitur. It was a red herring. And I was like, what?
Yeah, it was about keeping white people in everlasting ignorance. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, what? White people. Okay, so like
Hey, man,
there's this one amazing, stunning fact. I'm sorry, I rate. There's just, please let me, because it's gonna fall away if I don't. There's this one stunning hard numbers fact that just throws this out of the water and makes everything they're saying fucking wrong and an absolute lie. That is the quantity and percentage of mixed race people there are in America now.
Mansquatch says, I just tweeted the Good at Dr. X, a list of schools teaching CRT. And blocked in 3, 2.
Yeah, and there's a lot. It's not that they're teaching CRT. It's that they're training people, right? And
well, no, there's been a group of 5,000 teachers, man, that have signed this thing saying no matter what comes from, the states.
Yeah, that's
they said
one of the articles I said. Like
yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, now I remember. I forgot about it. But
actually,
yeah, that's where I saw it.
Yeah, that was on my list of things to like talk about as to follow up after we get on with the videos. I do want to interject real quick because Tim made a really good point about what is going on with Project Veritas and their lawsuit, and I think we should talk about it because I find it absolutely hilarious, and it's actually due to the defense, right? The New York Times defense actually admits that they're just full of shit and you can't rely on them, and that is their entire defense on the entire lawsuit. Anyway, Tim, I'm going to give it back to you if you can.
Which one now? I'm not sure.
No. I was talking about the Project Veritas lawsuit. You brought it up.
Oh,
right.
So the New York Times is trying. They're throwing every pissy, moany, cry, whine, type of limp-wristed and then some very technical jargon sounding bullshit, but none of it's actually real. Like Nick Rekieta's done a really good breakdown of what they've actually said and what's actually happening and how weak their arguments are.
They've admitted that they just made shit up and published it
as
a news article, and then they're trying to say, well, we're allowed to do that. So
yeah. And the way they're talking about stuff, there's a journalist. Like the way it's, I don't know how to articulate it really well right now. I'm sorry, it's the medication and everything. But the way they articulated their argument, they're trying to protect their own internal journalist or some sort of like a communication chat room that the New York Times uses with other groups. And I'm sure there's like, it's probably more salacious than journalists, honestly, at this point.
yeah, they don't want to have to actually answer questions.
I think they're terrified of discovery. I think they're 100% terrified of discovery.
Well,
just I don't know how else to put it to people. They are so scared right now.
It's going to make them look really bad. Unfortunately, the problem I have with it, like, I think Project Veritas is going to do a good job convincing people that already knew they were full of shit that they were full of shit. I don't think that the people that need to know they're full of shit are going to hear that message.
Well, I don't know. The New York Times is really desperate. Look at the shit they're writing. Look at who runs them. Look at everything else. The New York Times isn't making much money, honestly. Overall, they are not. They haven't. And that's the thing about like MSNBC and all these TV stations and stuff. The sad thing is, people just aren't watching television anymore. Nobody likes cable. The shit's garbage, dude. We can just pick what we want to watch online. And streaming platforms offer much better shit, dude. I'd much rather turn on like fucking Wild West fucking channel or, you know, anime or whatever specific kind of thing I want to watch. I'd rather go find a channel that streams it where I don't have to put up with 15 minutes worth of fucking ads for 20 minutes worth of fucking news. There's that too. And I think that's part of what we're seeing here is that the government and the media have become so comfortable controlling the narrative because they've been doing it for quite a while. And now we're watching the breakdown because the internet has broken that. It's destroyed it. The internet has destroyed television. Cable television is damn near dead.
Yeah, like video killed the radio star. Well,
pretty much.
The digital killed the analog star.
Yeah. Uh-huh. The gatekeepers, there's no longer a gate. It's just a wide open ocean now. And gatekeepers are still trying to control it.
Yes. All right, so we got an article pulled up. Are you hooked up to the...
Yeah, I'm ready. So this is going back to the next thing we were going to talk about today, which is what teachers' unions are doing to respond to bans on teaching critical race theory in schools. So the headline of this one is Teachers Union announces campaign to bring every student, even Mexicans, the non-critical race theorist, radical teachings.
Oh, Ibram X. Kendi is a truly radical figure who openly embraces racial discrimination. And this is true. This is true. I don't know why he was unwilling to do it on MSNBC when there's, I don't know, probably something close to an hour's worth of him just saying, yes, this is the type of thing we need to do. This discrimination is necessary to balance the scales.
Equity, yeah.
So, yeah. So that one kind of confused me, but whatever. I mean, he only put it in paper, but whatever. Okay. We're reading this?
I guess I'll start reading and then I'll leave it back to you, Atima, which is our dedicated
Let
reader.
me go run and get some water. I've run out of drink and the edibles, and I'm very dried in the mouth.
Okay.
So
I'll
give
start
me a
with the
sec.
first few paragraphs.
Good old Cottonmouth.
Yeah, oh, it's bad, dude. My tongue is almost stuck to the roof of my mouth. I'll be right back.
So the American Federation of Teachers, which is the second largest teachers union in the country, recently announced their new campaign to stamp out racism. Well, that sounds innocent enough. Sorry, you're resizing things. We should all oppose racism, of course. The details are quite troubling. The centerpiece of their campaign is the release of an AFT edition of the book Stamped by the well-known activist Ibram X. Kendi, who we just listened to. and writer Jason Reynolds. In the announcements, the AFT notes that they will distribute hundreds of copies of Stamped to NAACP youth councils and advisors. They go on to say giveaways will continue throughout the year and that free classroom collections will go out to AFT members, educators, and youth mentors during the AFT's Teach conference. It was also recently revealed by a scholar and activist, Corey DeAngelis, that Kendi was actually scheduled to speak at the American Federation of Teachers Teach conference. Tweet from Corey DeAngelis. Ibram X. Kendi is scheduled to speak Wednesday at the American Federation of Teachers Teach conference. In launching this campaign, AFT hopes to bring anti-racist education generally, and Kendi's writings in particular, into the classroom. In the announcement, they write that the campaign aims to make sure every student has an actively anti-racist, safe, and welcoming learning environment, and it will give educators the resources they need to help create it. They add, the campaign will also point to First Book's Empowering Educators series, a collection of resources that currently includes videos and a guidebook with actionable advice from educators around the country on having effective conversations on race with all students of all ages.
Wow.
Okay, hold on. I want y'all to just imagine how awful and cringy this is going to be, because you know it's going to be shit that's as embarrassing as like all the kids that are Hispanic or even kind of look Hispanic, which is going to be like, oh, I don't know, half of the Native Americans in America too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the people that are part Native American. And they're going to be told like, oh, well, we're going to give you beans to count for your multiplication. And it's going to be like fucking root balls for the black kids to count because they're African. And it's going to be fucking cringy and awful and embarrassing. And they're going to claim it's anti-racist when they do this. Just wait. That's what like 3rd and 4th grade is going to turn into, y'all. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Just wait.
I'm pretty sure that that's what this is going to go on to describe. So this is from the Foundation for Economic Education, which is a very libertarian site, but they're less libertarian than even I would like. But they're fair, right? They've been incredibly fair so far in what they like described the situation
right
amongst these anti-racist educators. So we have Ibram X. Kendi's radicalism. Like I noted at the outset, we should all want to stamp out racism. Further, it is also important for kids who have an accurate understanding of racism, slavery, and Jim Crow in U.S. history. But any campaign looking to promote Ibram X. Kendi's particularly brand of anti-racism should be approached with extreme skepticism, especially when it is aimed at our children's schools. After all, Kendi is a truly radical figure who openly embraces racial discrimination. In his hit book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, he writes, the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination.
Listen to that statement, y'all.
We actually already went through this multiple times.
No, he never answered that question, though, did he? He never responded to that specific assertion that Holly made.
He did not.
He danced around that motherfucker. He's slippery and shit. Slipperier than he is shit.
Oh,
Yes. Yes, we have him now.
Not.
Even though one would expect a book about anti-racism to condemn all types of racial discrimination, can he call for racial discrimination in perpetuity?
Perpetuity.
In perpetuity. Okay. That doesn't even make any sense. You will never be anti-racist if you are calling for discrimination based on race in perpetuity. That is cognitive dissonance. And if you try to show that to children, I'm going to get very angry. I'm glad I homeschool.
Well, yeah, and this is about the AFT, employing and just come out and straight saying we're going to do this shit whether you like it or not. Right? We're gonna teach your children.
Wow.
We're gonna teach your children. Yeah.
I don't know how well that's gonna go in certain places.
It's gone bad, which is why there's been the outcry, which is why people like Joy Ann Reid are going full throttle, being like, "This is Republican outreach," which it's not. This should not be a left versus right issue.
It's not.
You're honest.
It's not. Look at the people standing up and saying, "Fuck you." Most of these people are neither right nor left. They aren't even political people. Some of these are just they're busy, and that's that. And this is just ruining. They just realize what's happening, and they're like, "Holy fuck. There's no way I could have gotten anywhere in my life." They don't even have a real political bent either way. They don't even think about politics. They're just pissed off that somebody's telling kids they can't do things based on their skin color.
Which is a very American knee-jerk reaction that I believe in and should happen.
Yes.
Anyway, to the next segment. At the start of his National Book Award-winning work, Stamped from the Beginning, the book Stamped is based on, he writes that in all his research, he has not seen a singular historical force arriving at a post-radical America.
Post-racial America?
Post-racial, you're right. In simpler terms, he's arguing that he has not observed any real racial progress over the past 400 years.
Are you
That's
fucking
a stop right
serious?
there. That is a fucking stop right there. The end of slavery? Really?
Wait a minute. What? Oh.
Well, they just argue that slavery. No. They argue that slavery was modified, and it's like this slippery definition thing. They apply it to every fucking thing out there, right? And they use the slippery definitions to kind of slide shit like this in.
Are they saying the Democrat plantation is real?
No, they're not. Oddly enough, I wonder why.
Not
it kind of implies it. It kind of implies it.
Sure.
It implies it for sure.
The CCP is all about this shit. They love it.
I mean, like this is the next part. After they're like, no real racial progress over the past 400 years.
That's right.
Right. So, despite all the gains people usually point to, i.e., the end of slavery, the end of Jim Crow, Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, etc., Kenny argues that racial discrimination has, and you cut me off. Discrimination has not abated in any way, and that it's just become more subtle over time. Jesus Christ, did I not say that earlier in the stream? Pretty sure I did. She also writes in Stamp from the Beginning that racial discrimination is the sole cause of racial disparities in this country and the world at large, which is bullshit, and real sociologists like Thomas Sowell have explained why that is complete bullshit. While most people understand that it is absolutely a factor, and there are arguments about how much is due to racial discrimination. I love how they said, they put in italics how much. The view that it is the only factor is baffling and illogical. By that standard, the Jewish and Asian income
gaps shouldn't exist. They shouldn't exist.
Yeah, it can only be explained by racial discrimination against whites, which makes no sense. Last and possibly most troubling is Kendi has expressed his belief in an executive branch Department of Anti-Racism. This is absolutely true. I've actually seen his writings on this, which would be able to unilaterally strike down any local, state, or federal law that it deems as racist. However, under Kendi's definition, he has even classified as tax cuts as possibly being racist. The only word to describe this policy is totalitarian. If the AG can strike down any law they deem racist, but something that's innocuous as a tax break is considered racist, then all this agency serves to do is impose Kendi's view onto the entire country, which is absolutely that's it. That's what CRT does. That's what it wants to do.
This is nuts, yo.
Yep.
This is nuts. They're trying to distribute this man's works to schools. Is that what I understand?
That's what this whole article's about. Yes.
Oh.
Hey, Timma, do you wanna be the reader now?
How the AFT pushes these ideas on kids?
Yes, I have water now, so I can make all the proper mouth sounds. It'll be fun. Okay. How the AFT pushes these ideas on kids. While there is a tendency to brush off such campaigns as harmless, the truth is that there's a very dangerous dynamic at play that has a heavy influence on children. When discussing these ideas in class, it would be completely acceptable, even laudable, to provide Kendi's view as one of many different perspectives. For example, if they assigned some of Kendi's work to read and then an essay by an intellectual with a different perspective like John McWhorter, that would be a valuable exercise. You can scroll up if you want.
So I want to stop real quick. I said this before. I have no problem with the idea of teaching kids about CRT being this thing that is popular in the world today as one view, way to view the world. And I think that you would have to do that at kind of a high school level, and you would have to teach it not as facts like what they're doing now, right? They're teaching CRT as these are premises that you need to adhere to, otherwise you're racist, right? They need to teach that this is this way of thinking about the world that exists. They need to teach the what the CRT people would say is the good things about this, and they also need to teach what the critics, right, the liberal scholars like James Lindsay would say about it, and value neutral. Just let the kids decide what they think is the right decision to make when it comes to these issues.
Well, okay, when you do things in that value neutral way, people end up turning out to be center right naturally. This is a very long article, dude.
I think we could probably stop this one. I don't think there's much else to get out of it.
I mean, it looks to me like they're just going to be showing what Kendi thinks as a singular idea and having it be shown as the only idea that matters. And I'm kind of seeing it already play out in public around here, especially around the children. Go ahead.
Oh, that was the FEE article. The other one I shared was from, I think, Newsweek. The misguided argument against bans on teaching of critical race theory.
No, it needs to be banned from high school down. Period. It needs to be banned because it's not a concept that needs to be taught to children. It's actually very heavy, and it's the type of philosophical, you usually use it Socratically, and it's usually to help you come to a more rational reasoning for irrational outcomes to things that have already happened. It's
I mean, I agree with you. Like, so these articles I pulled, they actually started with the fact that teachers unions have came out, and that was actually the Breitbart article that we were streaming. But the point is like a bunch of teachers are just like, fuck it. Still, I don't care if you ban it. I don't care if you tell me it's illegal. I'm going to indoctrinate my kids in CRT.
Well, okay, you do it at home. You don't let anybody do it at a school. I would be pissed if anybody was, if they went too pro-American without pointing out the shit that America's done wrong in the past or shit like that. Or if they didn't teach physics accurately or whatever. It wouldn't matter. There are specific reasons. Like, I pulled my kids from school and started homeschooling because of Common Core math.
Yeah, I have a good example of good teaching. In 8th grade, when we did the Civil War, and that was like an entire semester, a person, one of the teachers, I heard it described better later, which is there's this idea that it's the Confederate as Americans, which is one idea. And there's another idea that's the Confederate as traitors, right? But he basically broke that out, and he taught me how, like, yeah, there's reasons people in the Confederacy were fighting, not because they gave a shit about slavery, but because they didn't like the encroachment. At the same time, you had Union soldiers that didn't care about slavery at all either, that were doing it because they gave a shit about the Union. And
well, it wasn't until after World War II that historically the Civil War was not called the War of Northern Aggression in the South.
Yeah, no,
I think it
exactly.
still
Like,
is in some schools.
Exactly. And like my teacher was like very laissez-faire about that. And he brought all perspectives to the conversation. And I walked away being like, man, the Civil War was fucking complicated. Which I think is the right answer.
No, I didn't.
Right?
I didn't
That's
get.
what
I
everybody
wasn't
should say
taught
is
that.
the Civil War is fucking complicated.
No, I was taught that the Civil War was the South was wrong, and it was all about slavery. They didn't get into the nuance about states' rights or anything. It was just the South was wrong and bad, and they shouldn't.
Yeah, I know.
They should have tried to pull out of the government.
Yeah, I probably got lucky.
And they started the war at Fort Sumner, which we know is kind of bullshit now. So,
because that teacher like didn't try to tell me anything other than like shit was complicated. Like politics are complicated. The reason to go to war is complicated, right? Like I learned about how the pressure from the French against slavery like really played a big role.
Well, okay. The French didn't really have to apply much pressure because the working class and the poor fucking hated slavery. That was wage competition to them, and they fucking hated it. They hated it.
Yeah, I learned for the first time about race riots in the North.
Yeah.
Where free slaves were undercutting white people.
Well, do you know why unions were originally formed? It was to keep Black freed slaves out of the workforce in the North.
Yep.
That sounds familiar. And
That's
I think
the
it's right.
actual
That's sort of
history.
saying like when people like look at these things, like you gotta be like, it's complicated because people are complicated. And
Well,
I
it's
can actually
corruption.
circle this back to critical race theory, because what it wants to do so bad is to uncomplicate the infinite number of human interactions that take place.
Well, it's
And
infantile.
call it one thing.
But it's
You
infantile.
can't.
The entire concept of CRT itself, the post-Marxism behind it is incredibly infantile. The pissing and moaning and just, well, this isn't good enough and this isn't good enough, and that's all it is well, this isn't good enough. And it's all none of it holds any water, and it's not going to last. We all know that, but on its way out, holy shit, it's going to make a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And we need to figure out how to curb that mess, because we've already did this. And I was lucky when I learned about the Civil War. I learned it from a curly-haired ginger that wore a bow tie and circular glasses that were brass framed. And he didn't call it the Civil War. He called it the War of Northern Aggression. And he told us the absolute truth. And he busted out, and this was like 8th grade, and he busted out charts talking about the society of the time and how the majority of people that enlisted were abolitionists, like on the ground. Most of those people were abolitionists. They didn't want anything to do with slavery. They just wanted to stop having to sell things to the North with all the tariffs and shit. And they didn't want to have to deal with having their shit taken by Northerners all the time and not being able to redress it because there was unfair representation in the courts. Fuck, where have I heard this before?
Yeah, I've heard it all before. Like Tom Woods, one of my favorite libertarian scholars.
Well, I learned that in the 8th grade, and I also learned it in my house because as a child growing up, my mom had a set of encyclopedias written during the Civil War in the South. So I got to see exactly what the perspective was, and there was no way to hide the fact that the majority of the South actually didn't appreciate slavery. It was a very small. Yeah, we do. But it's really interesting that the sociology of it is fascinating. It's so, but anyway, I'm rambling because, yeah, it's drugs. And I need to get up and start walking around, guys. So I'm starting to be kind of spazzy muscle-wise.
Hold on. I have one thing I want to do for Tema.
What?
Give me just a second.
Yeah.
All right. The worst thing that could possibly happen is the 37 cents. I've played this on millions of times. 37 cents you make on the stream might go to the Vandals. So let's play the song for Tema.
No.
Live on. Let's just do it. Come on. Come on. Come on.
Where is
You
it?
don't have to. It's fine.
Come on.
All right. Convince me.
Is it there?
Oh, just watch the stream.
I love it.
Happy birthday, Tema.
Happy
Awesome
birthday,
story.
yeah.
True story. First birthday with Carl. He played that when we were on our way down to the beach. So, anyway, yeah. Thank you so much for playing that. That's awesome, guys.
Well, I was wishing you well. 365 days you're in jail. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Smile big.
All right, fam. And on that note, all right, so tomorrow I wanted to give a quick a promo for the ice cream interview tomorrow with Asherella, the original Asherella. Be like 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central, and 2 o'clock Pacific. If I can remember shit. And Excel, you got anything you want to promote?
Oh, his headphones and muted and everything. He's totally checked out. I don't know what he's doing.
I don't know either. All right, Tim, what about you?
I don't know. Come watch the show again, and yes, definitely check out Original Asherella, and make sure you check out Bubonic for You and Informative Massacre Porn.
Yes,
and
Thursday
make
nights.
sure you check out. Yes, and you check out Becca Becca. What is it?
Barely just Becca.
Barely just Becca. I always say it wrong. And check her out. Oh, XL is back. And I was trying to remember, and Roasted Opinions puts out really great videos too.
Yep.
And I'm trying to remember everybody, and Trippy Poop. And Still Monkey does stuff on Twitch. So check them all out.
That's right. Excel?
All I have to say is I love you all, and I will see you next week.
Right. And on that note, let's say goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.